um, all women of color doctoral cohort ever at the University of Louisville. It's five of us. I think that's pretty cool, and we call ourselves the Melanin Five. I'm just saying, wild applause. What? No, I'm kidding. So thank you all for signing in today. I think this is pretty cool for it to be late on a Friday in the midst of COVID and the world of being zoomed out and teamed out and all of that. And so anytime somebody volunteers to sign on to talk about this topic, it gives me goosies. Most people give me rashes, but this gives me goosies. So thank you all for being here. What we're going to do is it's going to be less of a lecture tonight and more about dialogue. So there's a movie, I mean, not a movie. Well, it does kind of feel like a movie, but it's really just a short video that we're going to show really quickly just to try to jumpstart some dialogue. I do want to add a few things just to set up the video. And once we watch it, then we'll break out into rooms so you all can actually unpack it together as a group. But I do want to be very, very clear. The video that we're showing is not designed to promote property damage. Okay. It's a whole lot of gems in the video. And if that's what you get stuck on, you have missed the whole purpose of the video. So I like to put that out just so you don't get stuck as you're watching the video. Those of you who know me, Leandra and Nakia, you know that we are committed to difficult dialogues. And we often talk about difficult dialogues and how to engage in them and all the right words you should and should not use. But we very rarely actually practice having those difficult dialogues. And so this is a great video that really sets the stage nicely, I think, anyway, for us to like really dig deep into those conversations. Because the mistake that we often make at higher ed, we do diversity really, really good. I mean, well, we think we do anyway. We really don't, but we think we do that really, really good. We're not as strong in the area of inclusion, and we almost fail at sense of belonging. And those three concepts are completely different. So you can think of diversity as how a space looks, inclusion is how a space feels. And the quickest way to remember the distinction between those three terms is think of diversity as being invited to the dance, think of inclusion as being asked to dance. But belonging means that I'm going to teach you the Cupid Shuffle. You can teach me some of your dances. I'm going to add some of my music to the soundtrack. Be prepared for some Cardi B is coming. You can add some of your music to the soundtrack. And then all of us are going to decide what this venue is going to be, what the decorations are going to be. That is completely different from me just being in the space. So when people get to help construct what this thing is, whether it's an organization, a space that we live, a space that we work, when everybody gets to decide how that space is going to look and feel, that's how you're going to get the most out of people. So one of the ways to get there is to engage in difficult dialogue, to try to see the world through different lenses, to be open to considering different perspectives. So we hope to do most of that through watching this video and actually unpacking it. So Leandra and Nakia, do you all want to add anything while I pull this video up?
I would just add, as we go through this process, we understand as it relates to diversity and inclusion that not everybody is at the same place in their life in terms of understanding and being able to articulate and have those conversations. And so we want you to bring your authentic selves into this conversation. And so regardless of how much information or knowledge that you feel that you have or that you don't have, we really, really, really want you guys to feel encouraged and empowered to be able to talk about some of the things that you understand and the things that you don't understand, because the path to understanding diversity and inclusion, it's infinite. It's like we aren't even at the end of our journey, and so we're all still learning together. And so I really just want to encourage you guys really to feel empowered, to really engage in the dialogue that we have, and don't feel like you can't speak on something because you don't have the knowledge to do so.
I definitely just want to echo what Leandra just said, just encouraging you to bring your authentic self, to be transparent. We're in a space that we want to be comfortable and to allow you to share how you feel, your thoughts, and allow that opportunity for growth and development. And so we know that growth truly only comes from that feeling of discomfort. And so we definitely ask you all to be open, to share, and get ready for some great conversations with us.
So I've been seeing a lot of things talking of the people making commentary. Interestingly enough, the ones I've noticed that have been making the commentary are wealthy Black people making the commentary about we should not be rioting, we should not be looting, we should not be tearing up our own communities. And then there's been an argument of the other side of we should be hitting them in the pocket. We should be focusing on the blackout days where we don't spend money. But, you know, I feel like we should do both. And I feel like I support both. And I'll tell you why I support both. I support both because when you have a civil unrest like this, there are three types of people in the streets. There are the protesters, there are the rioters, and there are the looters. The protesters are there because they actually care about what is happening in the community. They want to raise their voices, and they are there strictly to protest. You have the rioters who are angry, who are anarchists, who really just want to shit up, and that's what they're going to do regardless. And then you have the looters. And the looters almost exclusively are just there to do that, to loot. Now, people are like, well, what did you gain? Well, what did you get from looting? I think that as long as we're focusing on the what, we're not focusing on the why, and that's my issue with that. As long as we're focusing on what they're doing, we're not focusing on why they're doing. And some people are like, well, those aren't people who are legitimately angry about what's happening. Those are people who just want to get stuff. Okay, well then, let's go with that. Let's say that's what it is. Let's ask ourselves why in this country in 2020, the financial gap between poor Blacks and the rest of the world is at such a distance that people feel like their only hope and only opportunity to get some of the things that we flaunt and flash in front of them all the time is to walk through a broken glass window and get it. That they are so hopeless that getting that necklace, getting that TV, getting that change, getting that bed, getting that phone, whatever it is that they're gonna get, is that in that moment when the riots happen and if they present an opportunity of looting, that's their only opportunity to get it. We need to be questioning that why. Why are people that poor? Why are people that broke? Why are people that food insecure, that clothing insecure, that they feel like their only shot, that they are shooting their shot by walking through a broken glass window to get what they need? And then people want to talk about, well, there's plenty of people who pulled themselves up by their bootstraps and got it on their own. Why can't they do that? Let me explain to you something about economics in America. And I'm so glad that as a child, I got an opportunity to spend time at Push where they taught me this, is that we must never forget that economics was the reason that Black people were brought to this country. We came to do the agricultural work in the South and the textile work in the North. Do you understand that? That's what we came to do. We came to do the agricultural work in the South and the textile work in the North. Now, if I right now decided that I wanted to play Monopoly with you, and for 400 rounds of playing Monopoly, I didn't allow you to have any money, I didn't allow you to have anything on the board, I didn't allow for you to have anything. And then we played another 50 rounds of Monopoly, and everything that you gained and you earned while you were playing that round of Monopoly was taken from you. That was Tulsa, that was Rosewood. Those are places where we built Black economic wealth, where we were self-sufficient, where we owned our stores, where we owned our property, and they burned them to the ground. So that's 450 years. So for 400 rounds of Monopoly, you don't get to play at all. Not only do you not get to play, you have to play on the behalf of the person that you're playing against. You have to play and make money and earn wealth for them, and then you have to turn it over to them. So then for 50 years, you finally get a little bit and you're allowed to play. And every time that they don't like the way that you're playing, or that you're catching up, or that you're doing something to be self-sufficient, they burn your game. They burn your cards. They burn your Monopoly money. And then finally at the release and the onset of that, they allow you to play and they say, okay, now you catch up. Now, at this point, the only way you're going to catch up in the game is if the person shares the wealth, correct? But what if every time you share the wealth, then there's psychological warfare against you to say, oh, you're an equal opportunity hire. So if I played 400 rounds of Monopoly with you and I had to play and give you every dime that I made, and then for 50 years, every time that I played, if you didn't like what I did, you got to burn it like they did in Tulsa and like they did in Rosewood, how can you win? How can you win? You can't win. The game is fixed. So when they say, why do you burn down the community? Why do you burn down your own neighborhood? It's not ours. We don't own anything. We don't own anything. Trevor Noah said it so beautifully last night. There's a social contract that we all have, that if you steal or if I steal, then the person who is the authority comes in and they fix the situation. But the person who fixes the situation is killing us. So the social contract is broken. And if the social contract is broken, why the do I give a shit about burning the Football Hall of Fame, about burning the Target? You broke the contract when you killed us in the streets and didn't give up. You broke the contract when for 400 years we played your game and built your wealth. You broke the contract when we built our wealth again on our own, by our bootstraps in Tulsa, and you dropped bombs on us. When we built it in Rosewood and you came in and you slaughtered us. You broke the contract, so your Target, your Hall of Fame. As far as I'm concerned, they could burn this bitch to the ground. And it still wouldn't be enough. And they are lucky that what black people are looking for is equality and not revenge.
All right, now breathe in and out. All right. So I did forget to warn you about the colorful language, but what I'm pretty sure is college students, not the first time you've heard it. So what we're going to do at this point, we're going to break you off into groups. And this is your assignment. We are not having a conversation again about if it's okay or not to do property damage. What I want you to talk about is, what were your first reactions to the video? What did you learn, if anything? And what, if any, aha moments did you experience? So first reactions, things you learned, aha moments. Good? Any questions before we go in? All right. Hopefully I'm not responsible for putting people in the groups, because that will be a nightmare. But we're ready to break off into groups. And how much time are we giving them in groups? Leandra and Nakia?
20 minutes.
20 minutes. So you have 20 minutes. So you want to share the air, okay? You may have a lot to say, but please make sure that everybody in your group is able to share. All right, we're ready to go. Like everything went pretty well. Still waiting on another group.
I was going to say it could be that group.
I'm just glad it's not me this time. I'm horrible with following directions.
There we go.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, so I guess we can hear from each of the breakout groups. And I will tell you, the group that I was in, I'm not going to do the report out because I talk a whole lot and you all hear a lot up from me. So if somebody from each group could give a quick overview, report out about how that discussion was. Not all at once, though. Yeah, quit talking over each other.
Ours was most of us were white. A lot of us were ignorant about Tulsa and Rosewood, so we got some good recommendations for docuseries to watch about it. We talked about how the speaker in the video is completely valid, even though and probably because that she's angry and loud. That doesn't mean she's not right.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Now, not to brag, but my group was pretty amazing, and they're probably like their heads are probably still like, "What?" No, I'm kidding. I mean, we were amazing though. Yeah. So there were 3 groups. We've heard from one.
In our group, we talked about like our ignorance as white people and how the education system played a big role in that, and how like moving forward, we really need to be educated. Like the education system needs to do better, but we also at this point need to do better and kind of reach out and educate ourselves, because things aren't going to get better unless we know what's wrong and know how to fix it.
Thank you. All right. Our last group.
Well, I'll talk for our group. So we kind of talked about like what we first thought of the video when we first saw it, what we learned about, and then what was an aha moment. So most of us saw it like when the first reactions, we were, like very kind of interested to see what we were watching, because I mean, this is a very important subject, just not in this country right now. And then I think we all really liked, as an aha moment and kind of just the first reaction was the discussions of Tulsa and Rosewater, because not a lot of us, because we were very diverse with different races in there. So we were all very interested, because none of us never heard of Tulsa and Rosewater, and some of us did. So it's kind of, and the ones that didn't know about it, we were all like, maybe we need to read more about it, because it seemed very interesting to read about. And then kind of like the afterthought, we were all like, there was definitely like a sense of like, there needs to be, as a country and a nation, to all ban the African Americans, the whites, the Latinos, and all those. We need to all just come together as one nation to fight the cause, because their message definitely was very influential.
Thank you for sharing that. So one common theme that I heard was lack of education. So one of the things we talked about in our group is this work is not about people beating themselves up. So like the purpose of this work is not for white people to walk away feeling like crap. One, because that does not result in action, and that's really what we need. Guilt, blame, and shame are the least productive emotions. They're natural, but they are the least productive. What they do is cause you to get stuck. And then you separate yourself from the cause that we're asking you to be a part of. So one of the quotes that I love, it's my favorite quote ever, and it really drives the work that I do, is by psychologist Joy DeGruy, who says, America's pathology is her denial. So in essence, the reason that we're sick as a country, that we're sick as communities, that we're sick as higher ed institutions, is because we are operating in denial. We're not telling the truth. And so the only way, as we talk about how do we heal forward, how do we get rid of racism, how do we all truly come together, is we have to start telling the truth. And in order to tell the truth, you got to learn the truth. And all of us were robbed of the exact same educational process. All of us were. I told them in the other group, I'm only 22. Lies. However old I am, I just learned about Juneteenth. I mean, like really learned about it maybe 3 years ago. I'm too old not to know what Juneteenth is, right? And so I can beat myself up and say, Marian, shame on you. Or I can remember that I was a part of that process and that system that failed you all too. Educational systems did not just fail Black and brown people about their history. They failed white people about Black and brown history as well. And so when you think about how history is told, we typically only get a slither of it, just a slither. So we learn about, and in our group, we talked about museums and how when you walk into museums, you see a bunch of dead white men. And it's not because those white men didn't do great things, but the whole story is never told. And so I think about, like, even in 2020, imagine if I had somebody to take care of my kids, clean my house, take care of the land, take care of my spouse, and I don't have to pay any of them. Like, nobody get, do you know how far along I would be? And so when we're telling stories, because certain parts of the story have not been told, we only think about, oh, you get that far by working really hard. And we don't tell the rest of the story. So that's when we start having conversations about privilege. People get all tense and say, no, nobody gave me a handout. I'm here because I worked hard. Yeah, well, yes, you did work hard, but there was some other stuff happening, right? It's real easy to come to U of L and get engaged in all the student activities and be committed to your studies and have good grades when you don't have to work, when you were not raised in poverty, when you've always had access to good food, neighborhood, clothing. So those are the conversations that we have to start having. So I won't give you a whole workshop here, but one of the things that I heard over and over and over is the need for education. And what I can tell you, it's not a quick fix, but it is the only fix, that we have to become educated and we have to start operating in truth, even when it doesn't feel good, right? You don't get healed just by going to the doctor, right? You got to go in the doctor, you got to tell the doctor a whole bunch of stuff, what you ate, what your family's medical history is. All of those things have to come out. At that point, the doctor can put together a plan that's going to put you on the road to recovery. You walk in there and say, no, I just eat greens all day long. You're not going to get much help, because that's not the truth. So we've got to start being committed to telling the truth. So I've talked a lot. I'm going to be quiet and let Leandra and Nakia jump in.
So I'll say from our group, and Trevor was from our group and gave a very good summary of some of the things that we discussed. And I know that one of the things that was an aha moment for some of our group members was when she talked about monopoly. And, you know, I had someone in our group to say, you know, it also made me think about the game of life, which is very true. And so just thinking about how she used monopoly to compare to economic inequality and that social contract. And we just talked about how it made you see things from a different perspective. It made you think like, oh, okay, now I get it. I get it, like, because it was compared to Monopoly. And how many of us have played Monopoly on a regular basis, and we're playing to win, and we're putting hotels on places, moving people off places. Hopefully we land on boardwalk, trying to send people to jail. So, you know, we identify with Monopoly because it's something that more than likely we've played growing up, and for it to be compared in this manner, I think it allowed our group to really open our eyes to say, like, okay, I think I get it. I think I get it a little bit, but I want to learn more. And so just to really echo what you said, Marian, about just education, because I told my group, you know, with Tulsa, I didn't know too much at all until a few months ago, and I still feel like I need to learn more. And so it's just that idea of continuously learning and growing, and just to grow into the best that we can be. And it's a daily journey for sure. But I will say that with my group, I think an aha moment that we talked about was the Monopoly game. And then we had some other aha moments of just really thinking, like what she was describing is you can't win in a sense of hopelessness. So no matter how much you try to do what you can, it's kind of like, is that ever enough? So we just kind of had some different conversations centered around that.
And let me jump in one more time. No, that's like I'm gonna jump in like 3 more times. But as you were talking, it reminded me even of the Black Lives Matter movement. So if there are people on the call who still don't get why that movement is necessary, could you imagine living, not having those stories told about people who look like you? Not ever being given any information about how at one point your community did all of that. So just please walk away understanding that movement is not about Black Lives Matter, so yours don't. It's an issue of who gets to learn that their life matters in representation, in history books, in narratives told, when you turn on the TV, who gets to have that positive image to where that is instilled in your brain from birth all the way up. So that was something, and something else I had written in my notes that I realized I didn't share until Nakia said something. Whenever we're thinking about who follows rules and who doesn't, because that's a conversation that we have often. Well, if you just do it this way, well, if you just follow the rules, your life will be so much better. Listen, in my house, it is very easy for me to follow rules, and I cannot fathom why the hell my kids can't just follow rules. Like they're simple, right? Follow the rules and your life won't be hard. You won't get your phone taken, gaming station gets to stay in your room. And then I have to stop and ask myself a critical question. Miriam, why is it easy for you to follow the rules? Because I created them and they are designed to benefit me. So in your student orgs, when it looks like certain people are not doing things the way the organization is set up, instead of blaming them, you want to dial back and say, wait a minute, who created this policy? Who created this rule? And who was it designed to benefit? Because sometimes when people don't follow rules, I'm a professional non-rule follower. It's because the rule was not designed with me in mind, right? So I want to leave you all with that. I'm going to shut up and mute myself. Leandra, go forth.
So first, let me say it's not Santa and the reindeer on my roof. It's just the maintenance man. It sounds a little loud, so I'll try to make this as quickly as I can. And so in our group, we talked about, we went through and talked about the reactions, what you learned and some of the aha moments, but we actually took it a step further in thinking about, so after today, based on the video that we saw and some of the conversations that we had, what's something that we can all do going forward? And I think some of the feedback that everybody gave was some really great points. And so listening more, and specifically listening more to Black and women of color. Making sure that when others say things, when we're in spaces with our own family and friends, that we kind of, speak up in that moment. And it doesn't have to come from a place of aggression or malice, but just helping to educate them. Because again, as we talked about, we understand that everybody is where they are, and not everybody, you don't know what you don't know, right? And so what role can we play in helping those around us get to the place that we are? And someone mentioned, and I don't remember who said it, but I wrote it down, and they said, thinking about the video and, her tone of voice, remembering that just because you speak with emotion, it doesn't discredit the argument that you're making. And I think that was a really, really great point, and really understanding that, because I think I can speak for myself, and just growing up in some of the things, especially related to that, you try to speak a certain way because you don't want to come off as the angry Black woman. And so remembering that, just the way that we behave and the way that we react to things can really impact others, and just keeping some of those things in mind. But I think we had, again, a really great conversation, and I'm excited to see people in the future and maybe do some follow-up about how things went. I think especially after, this holiday season, because those are the times where, we around our relatives, the ones we want to claim and the ones we don't. And so, having those conversations and really coming back to say, so how do we approach some of these conversations? Because I think it's just natural that these conversations are going to happen just because of the climate that we're in, the racial climate, the political climate, even things that are going on with COVID. And so, I really just want to encourage you guys to continue to have these conversations, feel empowered to do so. And again, this journey, it's a learning journey for everybody, and nobody is at the end.
There is no end. Do we have time for questions?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Things you
I've
want
got a
to
question, if
Mhm.
you don't mind me asking. Marion, earlier you were talking about how rules needed to change. If it follows that these rules are politics, what rules do you think, or laws rather, what rules do you think need to change, and how do you go about changing them?
So there are a lot of rules and actually I would be willing to say that all the rules need to change. I think and it really depends on the organization. It depends on the office. It depends on the outcome that you're talking about.
Oh, you're thinking on like a company level or something?
Well, no, student level, individual. So
Okay.
something as simple as um, when we say things like, "Oh, she's loud," we need to stop and say, "Who got to set the decibel level?" Like, it, who? At what point did somebody say, "Okay, now this is too low, and this is too loud, and this right here is perfect"? Who got to do that?
Okay.
There's a thing that we follow called Robert's Rules of Order. Has anybody freaking met Robert? Who is Robert?
That's what I was about to say. Who's Robert?
Who is Robert? And I'm not necessarily saying don't use Robert's Rules of Order, but you always want to go back and ask, why do we use that? Because some rules we have in place, they were designed to keep certain voices out, right? They were good for structure, but they were good for structure in the context many times of white supremacy. And then what happened was we said, okay, y'all, this isn't right that there are only white people in the room. Let's let people of color and LGBT and people living with disabilities, everybody can come in the room. But we never changed the rules. And we expect people to follow those exact same rules, right? Women used to not be able to work in the workplace. Now they can. But it's a lot of rules that never ever change. And we wonder why women are the ones that keep lagging behind. Well, it's because those rules didn't change. I was working with an organization, I think we had a meeting like 2 weeks ago, and they were talking about wanting to diversify their board and their leadership team. And as I stopped and listened, the guy said, so we keep everything the same. That way people know what to expect. They can prepare as they're coming in. And their leadership meetings were every Monday morning at 7 a.m.
Dang,
He said,
that's rough.
and people know that coming in. So like they can prepare. I said, and so while you're telling everybody that they're invited to join leadership team, you are unconsciously keeping out women. You're keeping out people who have school-age children. You're keeping out people who rely on public transportation. And they were like, oh, they've kept it at 7 because it's always worked. I said, right, it's always worked for the people it was designed to work for. So that's one example. The other example was the way they selected their board members. You had to pay a fee to be on the board. I said, well, hell, that's a no-brainer. I mean, think about the people who have the experience, the personal knowledge, but not the finances. That will never get an opportunity to be on your board. They said, well, it costs money to run the organization. And guess what? I get it. But you can fundraise, and you can also say that we need $50,000 at the board level to do X, Y, and Z. You may have one board member that can write a $50 check. So it's about stopping and looking at all the rules and changing them. Some of them
Yeah.
won't need to be changed. Many of them will be.
To follow that up, as we've seen, a lot of people they're clamoring for rules to change on a federal and state level, and I'm wondering if it is like I don't really go to protests. I'm not really part of the movement much. I've largely ignored it to focus on other parts of my life. But I apologize if that's offensive or anything.
It's
But
reality.
as someone who is like, I guess, being faced with this now, is it common knowledge what exactly needs to change and how exactly to change it? Because I feel like just standing in the middle of the street saying this needs to change doesn't, or like saying something general like make Black people equal, like you can stand and say that all day, but unless you have a plan and have like specific rules you need to change on which level, I feel like nothing's going to happen. And so I'm wondering if there is a plan. Like, what is it?
That's a really good question. So let me tell you all, protesting is the marketing plan for action. So don't ever think that whatever you do, even if you just stay at home and post on social media, every action helps. Everyone does. There were a lot of things that came out of the Breonna Taylor protest here. A lot. Laws
Yeah.
changed, privilege was interrupted. So the main portion of protesting is designed to interrupt privilege. So if you can't go on about your day the way you've always done it, now you stop and you're seeing things differently.
Yes,
And
I agree with that.
yeah, sometimes it's the lawmakers that get interrupted and they're willing to do something different. So
Yeah.
I'll give you one example of something that needs to change. And I know some of you are going to cringe when I say this, but hey, I asked you to be authentic. You're going to get me too. The call to defund the police. And again, a lot of people don't know what that is about. So let me give you a quick lesson. Nobody said, no, some people are saying get rid of the police all the way, but the movement in and of itself is addressing the fact that we put way too much on police officers. A police officer should not get called to get a cat out of a tree. A police officer should not be called because Karen is not comfortable walking her dog in the park because a black man is there. A police officer should not be called because somebody is battling mental illness. Those things are unfair for the person that the police get called on. And it's very unfair for police officers because they're not trained to do that and they shouldn't have to. They should have to respond to and prevent crime, period. So the call to defund the police means that social workers are woefully underpaid and under-resourced. If we give them more money instead of criminalizing disability, they can take care of those things. Officers can be freed up to deal with crime. In our country, if you've ever visited a prison, I take students on prison tours often. If you ever go into a prison, the majority of the prisoners are people living with disabilities. We have criminalized disability. And so we have to shift some money. You can't have that much money going into the prison industrial system and in law enforcement when there are people who basically need that, right? So the what is crime, we got to start focusing on the why, which is poverty. You deal with poverty, crime goes away. And so that is what the whole movement is about. Putting money to the why so that the what goes away. And people will say, well, how can you live in a world without police? Well, I can tell you, go out to Lake Forest. They do it every day. They do it every day. They have a police-free life. And it's because their basic needs are met. So I don't know if that helped. That was a long answer to your question.
I like that explanation about the police. And they get funded by people on state level, I think, or county.
Yeah, I don't know. Now you're never gonna get me to talk about stuff that I don't know. So that's not my area. So I know it doesn't come to my pocket. So I don't know that.
Who are the people that do?
I can connect you with some people. Actually, if you talk to Dr. Cherie Dawson-Edwards, she's a professor in criminal justice. She can lay it all out for you.
Okay, I was just curious how much of a plan you guys had.
Yeah.
Because I like.
Oh, it is a plan. Yeah, there are plans.
Yeah.
There are plans. If you've been following the story, they've changed the no-knock warrants. They got rid of that. Yeah. So
they have to wear body cams.
Yeah. It's a lot of plans.
That's great.
A lot of plans. Mm-hmm. Great question.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Jib, I think it's important that we are asking these kind of questions because we just talked about, the need to educate ourselves. And if we don't know something, what is stopping us from finding that out? I mean, how many times do I ask Alexa a question every day kind of thing? So it's like, if there are these questions that you're thinking about, especially when we're going into like holiday times, like I know that my family is going to do like a holiday family Zoom, and I'm very grateful that I can just exit the meeting if need be. But you know, it's totally normal for questions to pop up, and it's okay if you don't know everything, because I, like, including our guest speakers, there's not a single person in this chat that has answers to everything. So I just want to say, like, I think it's awesome that this is a comfortable space where we feel like we can ask those questions.
Thank you for answering them.
Absolutely. And you also can Google, if you Google Metro Council's budget 2020, it'll bring it up for you, and you will see in black and white how much money we are and are not given to appropriate budgets. This is public information, so.
Well, what?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So I know that my department and my org, GNAS and Fine Arts, they're both working on drafting diversity statements. So I'm wondering what you've seen that has been like performative words, and like what would be better in terms of concrete actions. I know you can't get into like department specifics, but I know a lot of times diversity statements are really performative and not really like solving a problem. So I guess what would be your advice when drafting those?
First thing that I would say is that it needs to be measurable. Because how many times do we read something and people say they're going to do X, Y, and Z, and in your mind, you roll your eyes and say, well, how are you going to know if you do that? That's the first thing to think about. And so you need to be able to measure it is what you're doing. And I think it also, when you write diversity statements, whether it's the diversity department or anybody, you've got to be able to get the voice of all the people who are going to be impacted. And so, you know, the department should be having conversations with you as a student. They should be having conversations, especially, you know, with our students of color, students who are impacted by any of the isms, having conversations with their faculty members, because I think oftentimes, you know, I think we, especially us that work in higher ed, we've all been guilty of this, in where we write or we create something with the idea that we know best without necessarily having conversations with everybody that's impacted. And so I would say that's the first place that before you write a diversity statement, just having a conversation and being able to understand what the climate is of the environment before you can put anything on paper.
I agree with that. And I have a little different take on performative work. And so I'm a church girl. And I remember when I was younger, I would see people fake shouting, like they really wasn't shouting, they was faking. And then before you knew it, they were shouting for real. So what I believe, that if somebody starts off performative, they might fake their way into something real. But more importantly than anything, it gives us extra footing to hold them accountable. So I've seen a whole lot of Black Lives Matter signs come up. And now when they act up, I get to go right back to them and say, oh, but Black Lives Matter, they do or they don't. Because before they were not even saying it. So the way I approach it is, if you put it in your statement and you put it on the side of your wall, now I get to hold you to that. So Nakia, it looks like you were going to say something.
And I was just going to definitely echo what both of you all said, and for sure what Leandra said about bringing those key individuals to the table. I know that in the work that I do in my department, sometimes we often will plan, you know, initiatives or events, and it's just one person at the table, and then it's put into play, and we're like, wait, I didn't get to have a say, or this doesn't even apply to me. And so truly being intentional about bringing individuals to the table to help create a statement that you are hearing the ideas, the opinions, the thoughts, the insights from all these different individuals to create the best statement for the department.
These are great questions.
Can I ask who's the woman in the video? Does she write stuff? Can I read it?
Yeah, her name is Kimberly Jones. She has a couple of books, I believe, but if you Google her, and she has a lot of YouTube videos, but she's an activist, and not one to be played with. she knows her stuff. She's super smart. But Kimberly Jones.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have a question going into the holiday season. We're talking about going home and seeing that side of our family. And I know that since we're all woke college students, I know where that conflict comes in. But beyond like family level and even university, what do you see as the best solution to actually bringing truth up? Because actually, the performative thing hits on. It's easy to say like, oh no, this is the truth, and keep it there and go kind of deep. But how do we really get that ugly stuff out on the table? Not just our dinner table at home, but like nationally, university, like really getting all the dirt up.
Okay, because I have an answer. Okay, go ahead, Leandra.
I would say, just as from a starting point, I think that you as an individual, you have to feel empowered to be able to challenge that thinking, because I think that's where sometimes, because some people may feel like they don't have the right words, or they don't know specifically how to articulate, that they're not in a place where they can speak up and challenge what someone is saying. And so I think the first step is that you have to feel empowered to want to have those conversations and challenge some of the things, whether it be your family members, whether it be a U of L administrator or your professor, feeling empowered to kind of have those conversations and back up with what you're saying with truth and fact.
Yeah, so I'm a professional disruptor. I just make sure that every time I show up, and when I say disruptor, it's always with the goal of balancing education and liberation. So, like, I don't wear t-shirts just to wear them. My t-shirt is either going to say, I see white people, it's going to say Black Lives Matter, it's going to say Black women, right? Like, it always has a message on it. None of my masks are just plain. It's going to say no justice, no peace. It's going to say something, so that when I enter spaces, even if somebody doesn't want to change their heart and mind, I'm always going to send a message that says, not while I'm in the room. And I have to do that even with my family. So with my family, it's not racism, it's homophobia. I can guarantee you, every time we have a gathering, there's going to be a homophobic statement made. But I'll tell you, we've gone from 40 to maybe 1, because I've taught my family really, really well that I will pick up everything that I brought in this house, sweet potatoes, greens, and all, and I will exit stage left. So I do this thing where I count with my family, and they know that if I get anywhere near 10, me and my boys are leaving. I've trained them very well. So something will come out, I'll go 1, and I'll hear my mama go, y'all, don't you say it again. And I'm like, yeah. Another time, I remember we were in the dining room eating, and my brother, who I love dearly, but literally he could be the poster child for homophobia, he said something, and I kept warning him, don't say it again. And he kept pushing me, and I picked my whole plate up, and I went in the living room. My mom said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to an LGBTQ friendly space. And I went right in the living room and sat down and ate my food. So bare minimum, you teach people how to treat you. Bare minimum, my family knows that when I walk in the house, whatever joke you told, whatever statement you were going to make, it stops right here until I leave. So those are the types of things that you have to do. I don't come into meetings. I mean, even if I'm talking about budget, we're not going to talk about budget without talking about disproportionality. We're not going to talk about budget without talking about inequities and how it impacts women and how it impacts people of color. So you have to be the work and not do the work. So I want my paycheck every month, but I don't feel like I'm working when I'm fighting for what's right. And that just has to be a personal commitment that you carry everywhere you go.
I think that the one thing that I'll share is you have a voice and you have every right to use it. And like Leandra said, to feel empowered. And it makes me think, y'all, this morning, like 8 o'clock in the morning, I went to the hairdresser, okay? And it was just me in there at first, but then another lady walks in. And we had just got done talking about reality TV. So I love reality TV shows. They are life. They get me through. I love every bit of it. Well, then we started talking. I don't even know how the conversation shifted. But then we start talking about the LGBTQ community. We start talking about what it means to be binary. We start talking about gender. We started talking about sex. We started talking about gender reveals. And I mean, it was just this entire conversation with someone that I didn't even know. And we're talking about some different things that I know she didn't come to the hairdresser to talk about, but it was a conversation and it was education, because even my hairdresser was like, well, what does that mean? And, you know, we started talking about pronouns, and it was interesting, because I was like, I know we all came in here just to get our hair done and going about our day, but it was a space that we had a conversation about educating one another and how we're learning and how we're growing. But then one other thing I'll add, and it made me think of this when Marian talks about her family, and my family is the exact same way during the holidays. And I'll never forget, probably about 10 years ago, my grandmother, and I love my grandma, she said something that was homophobic, and I was like, you can't say that. She was so angry with me. And I told my mom, and my mom was like, Nakia, you need to go apologize. And I said, I'm not apologizing for anything. And I was like, so she needs to know that you just can't say that. I know that she's like 70, 80 years old, and, you know, older individuals think they can say whatever. But I was like, you can't say that. You can't. So, yeah.
Think of it as a crush, Jonathan. Think about when it was somebody you was interested in, you just was looking for, okay, when am I gonna make my move? That's what you have to do with this work. Wait for that one thing that you like. Oh yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. And go on in there. Go on in there. There's always an opening.
Yeah, I think it's important to be able to create some level of like a compassionate space for people, especially white family members, and especially like all my descendants are like Northern European, and it's like there's sort of this mindset of like what white privilege, like, you know, like my grandpa's from Germany, like I didn't have any, like it's sort of those conversations that are hard, because it's always like I made my way here, but it's just it's to be able to have that compassionate conversation of like what something I found important.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you just said something, then you got stuck and I lost my train of thought. So the other thing that I do is I always engage authentically. So I'm a storyteller. That's the way I teach, that's the way I learn. And so if I'm going to talk to somebody about privilege, I start by owning my own privilege. Or I'll say things like, you know what I learned about myself a couple of weeks ago? You know, I used to use that language and then I learned that blah, blah, blah. So don't go in it trying to change people. Demonstrate your change. Demonstrate vulnerability. That's the thing that draws people in.
And I'll just say too, just to kind of add to that, I think that definitely for a lot of people, just because we say like, you know, it's the right thing to do, it's not the easy thing to do. Like everyone knows the easiest thing to do is just like keep your head down and again, just focus on those mashed potatoes. But it's one of those things that's like, if you like, we all know that we're like kind of going into battle a little bit, you know, we're waiting for our lap moment to like swoop in on our crush or whatever it is. But like, if you know you're going into battle, you have your like your weapons, you know, not to say that you're like fighting anyone, but you've got this like toolbox of, you know, stories, and you've got, you know, all of you coming to this thing now, you have more knowledge right now than you did 2 hours ago. And so it's like, whether that be like you know, check out a new podcast, or you have that book that you can say to a relative, like, I don't fully understand, but if you want to learn more, I'm reading this book and it'd be cool if we did it together, kind of thing. So like, don't be intimidated, because obviously, you know, we've got 3 PhD candidates on the call, you know, and I still struggle to spell the word recess sometimes. So it's okay that you're not a professional, but there's this quote that I have on my laptop that says like, now's the time to understand more so that we can fear less. I think it was Marie Curie. And that is just so like just vital, especially when we're walking in and people are like, trying to like poke holes in your argument, you can say like, well, I don't know everything, but I do know this. And I do know that I know someone who had this experience, and that is how I know it's true, kind of thing. Not to go on a tangent, but
come on, Caitlin. You gotta teach. I love it.
One thing that I would add, that a mentor told me, especially when thinking about diversity work, is that, before you get to that place of trying to, change hearts and minds, you need to look and be open to understanding their point of view before being understood of the point that you're trying to make. Because again, there are people who think or have these thoughts about certain things because of something that they learned. I think especially when we talk about older relatives, how many times have you had an older relative say something to you because it's something that they grew up on, and you just kind of looking at them like, this is 2020, right? But you don't really actually say that because they might, swing their arm back and try to hit you or something. But just remembering that, again, people are where they are, and just being open to hearing where other people are and how they got to that place before trying to really help them understand what it is that you're saying.
This was a great way to end my week. When I looked at the clock, I was like, oh my God, I got one more workshop. This was a perfect way to end my week. I'm inspired. I don't even know what time we're supposed to be finished.
Me
At 5, at 6?
yeah.
Oh, let's
If you want to,
we thought it was 5:15. We thought
I do. Let's roll. Let's keep it moving. Yes. What other questions do you all have? This is great. And Joshua's so honest. Listen, if I was Joshua, I would have been like 5. It's time to go. Thank you, Joshua. Any other questions you all have?
I'd like to ask one if I can. So as a Black woman, this is for the 3 guest speakers. Of course, it's like that's probably just as about the most discriminated against any individual you could be in the United States. I mean, it's been proven that they could. I mean, just in Louisville, they can get killed and nothing will really happen. And I didn't even realize until the video that you really don't even see many videos of Black women speaking their truth or anything like that. So I'd just like to ask and ask what is it like? What do you feel? What is your experience as a Black woman in the United States?
We don't have enough time to talk about all that. I think it just varies. And I would say that my experience, I think the first thing is that we're not a monolith, right? So all of our experiences are very different. But I think the experience that I feel like I have, like for instance, at work is very different. In my office is very different than I have on campus in another office or at Kroger or at the mall. And so I really think the experience just depends on the environment that you're at. Because I mean, obviously I work at the cultural center. And so I work with other people of color. And so it's one of those things where I know I can go to work, I can vent, I can have these conversations, and they look at me like, girl, I already know what you're talking about. And so in that space, it's a lot different than if I were to walk across campus and maybe have that conversation with someone else. And so I don't know that there's one way to explain the experience, because it just depends on the environment that I'm in and the people that I'm around.
I think that my experience, like when I think about my experience at work, I don't work in an office where it is a great number of people of color in my office. And so if I am dealing with something, the 2 individuals on this Zoom that I call are Leandra and Marion, and I'm venting because I know that they get it. I also think that's why I'm so appreciative and thankful to be going through this doctoral journey with our Melanin 5 group, because we're all, as you all know, all women of color, but it's just something different that we get. And so it's something that's relatable that I don't always get on a daily basis. And so I think that with my experience, especially in the office that I work in, I don't always have that woman of color that I can go to and vent. And sometimes that's tough, but then I think that's why I'm so intentional about building a network of individuals that I can call and that I can trust and say, this is how I'm feeling right now. You know, am I wrong for feeling this way? Or let me talk this through with you because I want to get your perspective on it. And that's not to say that I don't have individuals in my office that don't support me, because I do. I have some amazing coworkers and colleagues that support me. They just don't look like me, and so they don't always understand what I internalize, what I deal with, what I go through on a daily basis of waking up as a Black woman every single day.
Mm. And so I want to start my response off by thanking you for even asking that question. One of the reasons I didn't jump right in was because I really had to stop and think. And I honestly can say, I think I can probably count on one hand how many times I've been asked that question by a white person, on one hand. And I'm 27 times two. Um, so I'll tell you, it's heavy. It's hard. It's stressful. People often say things like, Black women are so strong. I don't want to have to be like, that's not a badge that's not a trophy that I ever asked for. I don't know that people realize how much Black women have been socialized to take care of everybody but themselves. I even think about COVID-19. And when I think about which of my colleagues are on campus, making sure students have what they need, risking out in the streets protesting, Black women across the board, not only, but significantly in those numbers. Um, it's heavy. It's heavy, but it's rewarding as well. And the reason I say it's rewarding is because it is very little that I think I cannot do. There very rarely do I wake up and say, "Oh, this is impossible." So that's a strength that you gain being a Black woman in America, but it's an unfair one too, and it's one that comes with a lot of risk: high blood pressure, cancer, stress, diabetes. So that's what I tell people. Yes, you see a strong woman, but go find my medical files. Go find my medical files and ask yourself why I have a long list of health issues that are not hereditary. Like heart disease does not run in my family. Somehow I got it. Not somehow. I know exactly how I got it. So I will say it is rewarding, but it is very, very heavy. It's very heavy. Thank you for that question. Any others?
I was going to say, for the sake of time, if no one else has a question, we might move into the homework side of things, because I know Julie wanted to show people how to use Engage after.
All right. So thank you all. It was a pleasure being here with you all. You all have given me hope. Again, anything that's voluntary on a Friday evening and it's talking about diversity, and you say, yes, I'm going to do that. Listen, you are all now my BFFs. Yes. And if anybody wants to write one of my papers, I'm open. All right. Thank you all for having us. We appreciate it. Have a good weekend, and you all know where to find us if you want to continue the conversation or go deeper.
Marion, we can't leave. We the one giving the homework. Where are you going?
I don't know. I was sure enough to ready to sign off. Okay, carry on, Julie.
So just real quick, one of the things that we talked about, as you guys know, U of L is in the space of working to become an anti-racist institution. And so Marion's office is actually in the process of leading a book study now on how to be an anti-racist. And I know that SOAB and potentially Student Involvement CPC are going to be working to see if they can get you all the book. And so homework, one of the things that we challenge you guys to do is really to get to that place to continue your own journey of personal growth. And so I'm actually going to put a link in the chat to, it's a book club kit specifically for the book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. And so once you get that book, and over the break, whenever you get it, I highly encourage you to read through it, but not only keeping that information to yourself. So using some of the materials from this book club kit, and having conversations with people in your organizations, in your families, in your friend circles. Unfortunately, COVID's going on, so we can't go outside. We can't live our best life. So when you're sitting, in your suite with your other suite mates, have some conversations about this. And so I'll just post again the link to the book club kit. And, hopefully at some point in the spring semester, we can reconnect with you guys just to see where you are and how things are going. And you can give us a little bit more information on, your personal growth as from tonight up until the time that you've gotten the book and had some time to read through it. And that's it. That's all we got.
If you all are interested in, because obviously we have the budget right now because we don't have a ton of programming that we're doing. So if you all are interested in us purchasing the book, will you just drop a quick me in the chat? And then outside of that, Julie, if you want to go ahead.
Yes, because I said I would, coming from our last session of accountability, I finally got the path to work. Yay, yay, yay. It's my first attempt at it, but I want to show it to you because I went in yesterday and I put everybody into the path. If you don't want to complete the path, you don't have to. But what we had asked is that you all attend at least 4 of the sessions. And then for that, you do get the graduation cord. And then maybe for all of you that go to all the sessions, maybe we can come up with something else. But this one was very important that you all are here, and I really appreciate it. If you had missed any of the prior 2 sessions, the first one we did record, yay. So if you want to watch that session, we can send you the link. The second one, boohoo, we forgot to record. So we do have the video from it that we will send out, and you can still do the homework part. So I'm going to share my screen. Host disabled, participant screen sharing.
Hold on, I was trying to make you a co-host while we were in the breakout rooms. Okay, now you should be able to, hopefully.
Okay. Still says host participant. Oh, no. All right, Caitlin, you may have to go on.
Okay. Okay. Am I just showing engage?
Yeah.
All righty. And we'll also email this to you all out as well. I will say really quick before we get into that, can we take another little picture really quick before everyone hops off? So whoever wants to turn their camera on for a little selfie moment, feel free. We got to fix the hair, Job. I see you.
Y'all better turn them on. This is the only picture you'll get with me. My agent does not allow me to take free pictures.
I love that. All right. Big smiles, everyone. 1, 2, 3. Beautiful.
Yay.
Thank you so much. Okay. We'll go ahead and see what we can do now. Okay. And I'm going to my path?
Yes. So you're going to click on the letter in the top.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I think I just clicked something.
Take you to your path.
Sorry, y'all. Flexibility. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And it's going to give you a path description of what the path is about. And then it's going to fill your overall progress. So Caitlin, I want you to click on Community of Care because that's the one you attended. And it says that she did attend, but when you click on it, there's additional information required. So remember, the first homework for that path was a reflection on, we talked about the starfish story and how there was probably somebody in your life that was your person that rescued you and kind of put you into the path that you're on of success. So we are asking for you in the reflection to just tell a little bit about your starfish story. And then we also asked you to, if you could, call that person and thank them. So if you did that, then we want you to put in the reflection who your starfish was and a little bit of description about them. And then, you know, if you were able to contact them. So if you go back to Path Progress, now that she did that, it should show that she has completed that portion. For some reason it has 2. I don't know why. I have to fix that. So for so if you attended the event, we already signed you in, so you should already be in there. The second homework for accountability was based upon the video of Because I Said I Would, and we asked you to come up with 2 things that you are saying that you are going to do in your life, whether it be with your organization or personally. And then we want you to talk about what are the 2 things that you plan to be accountable for in this next year. And then this third one is going to be the book or any readings. If you don't want the particular book that Leandra's talking about, anything that you study, if you're looking up Rosewood, or if you're looking up Tulsa, anything that you're looking into about diversity or Black Lives Matter or any of the subjects, and just write a little bit about your perception, what you thought about it. And so it's very easy. So again, the path, it has for all of our workshops that we have. You only have to attend 4 for the graduation cord, but I really hope that you all follow through with us through the remainder of the semester. I think they've been really great, and I'm hoping that you all get a lot out of it. Also, after this is over, the Engage is going to send you an evaluation. We love the feedback we've been getting. We want you to continue to do that because we take seriously what you're telling us, and we put that towards the next workshop. So we are listening. Any suggestions you have, we would love to hear them. And just to kind of tie up tonight, you know, one thing I do want to tell you all is that students have so much power, especially at the university. And, you know, maybe we can't solve the problems in the community, and maybe we can't solve the problems in the world, but we can start right here. You can start in your organizations. You can start with SOAB. You can take it from there to student body, take it to the next step of the university. But we can work together to fix what is happening here on our campus, our own little community, and if hopefully that'll spread, you know, the fingers out. There used to be an old commercial when I was a kid. It was a shampoo commercial, and if you told 2 friends and they told 2 others, and all of a sudden there was all these people on the screen. But that's where it starts. It starts with you, and it starts with your family, and it starts with your friends and your groups, and taking this seriously, and us working together to help us here first, and then hopefully that will spread out to our greater community.
Perfect. Well, it sounds like you all attending this, you have got another tool in your toolbox to take with you for the rest of your life. The work is not done. Like everyone was kind of saying, this is just, I mean, maybe not the beginning, but this is hopefully the beginning of something within you all. Just kind of to ditto what you all said, thank you so much for coming. If anyone has any last comments, feel free to make them. But if not, you all are free to go. Please take care of yourself. Stay safe so you can take care of the people around you. Don't do anything crazy.
Have a happy Thanksgiving and time with your family, or time alone if you choose not to be with family. And good luck on your studies and your finals and the break. And we will see you in January.
Bye, everybody. And Google the holiday Thanksgiving. You'll learn something else. Bye-bye.
I am going to.